Yeah, I'm Gail Minogue. You probably got a bio on me in the mail or some in one of your emails. So I started out with numerology and started out learning um, a lot of things that had to do with sacred geometry and all of that. And as time progresses, you add to your learning. And over the years, and doing this since the 80s, um, you go into very deep subject matters. And then you tie it all in, what's going on. And that's what I've done. I've tied my knowledge, sort of what looks to be very disjointed information out there, but it's all very connected. And so we're living in a really tough time right now, challenging time for people because we're not used to this order that's going or disruption that's going on because everything is being disrupted. We are bringing in a new age and the old age has to go, and you're living through it, and you're living through a Pluto return, which is also very disruptive and destructive. And it has to be because it has to transform. Living under the old system was really not that great. And we need to create a system that works, and a society that works. And this is not just in the US, but it's a global problem. So we have a destruction of an old, we'll call Earth energy for a few hundred years, where everything was very much control over the Earth. You know, you controlled nature, you were industrial, you manufactured, and you did all that. And we're changing from that. That's been about a 200-year cycle. I want to go back to the United States birth. And the United States is a country with a 5 life path. And its whole purpose when it was formed was to be a catalyst of change for the world and to teach people how to assimilate. Well, that was our purpose. And so we were blessed with a terrific chart. We were blessed with terrific land, a great positioning on the planet where it is positioned. And so it was given all the advantages, and its job was to really learn to do constructive changing, bring in all different kinds of people, and learn to assimilate. And then once we learn to assimilate, we market that to the world. So our job really is about different kinds of people like we have in this country, all nationalities, creeds, races, and all that, because understand that the bigger purpose is about unity of the human. And so this was also ushering the beginning of the Aquarian age was the United States. So here we are, a few hundred years later, about 246 years later, facing a Pluto return, which returns us back to the time of when we were born. So we have to go back now. We have to look at what was the purpose of this place, why were we formed, and are we living up to what we said we would do? And so you're seeing a destruction of a lot of things we've created for 246 years because this has to go. We can't go on the way we have been. And we're going into an age of more enlightenment, more rational thinking, away from superstition, away from religion, man-made religion, and into what we'll call a more enlightened period. And so it's pretty ugly looking right now because there's so much that had to leave or has to go. And we have to have a situation where we can affect the world. And as you see, what you're seeing with this war in Ukraine is very much a representation of an old age dying, where you have a patriarchal society, namely, and you have a rulership of fear. And that was the old teaching tool of the Piscean age. Besides love, you had fear, and this tool was used. And so as we leave the Piscean age, we move into this age of Aquarius, and we are in it. And people say, well, no, it doesn't begin until here and doesn't begin until there. You're in it. And you have to understand that the breakdown is part of an old way of living and an old way of capitalism. Not that we do away with capitalism, that we change the way we do capitalism. And so, and we don't own the earth. We don't overpower the earth. We don't abuse it. And so you're seeing the fallout from all that we've done for 246 years. Going back in time, which is really interesting, there's a book called The Fate of Empires. And you could call the United States is really an empire. There is only one power in the world right now, and that is on the earth plane, and that is the United States. It's a unipower world. You can see China and Russia, but they're nowhere near the level that we are at economically, materially, and all of that. And it's showing right now in Russia. It's showing out there, and it also let's just say that America is the unipower right now. It's an empire. And so what happens to empires, they usually last about one Pluto return. The Roman Empire lasted it fell on a second Pluto return. But we're in a very, very testing time of will we make it? Because the program that we started out as has been so traumatized and so basically mishandled. And now we're finding that we have to do something and make a society that we can live with going forward, because the old one we can't go back to. The old one is destroyed. The old system is being destroyed. And so you have to take a look at what kind of society do you want and become much more active than we have been as part of maintaining it. If you go back into the fate of empires, you'll see that they all lasted, the majority lasted about 250 years. If they can make it through the first 20, they go a long time, but they usually go out on a Pluto return. So it's a very, very tenuous time now for this empire. And as you're seeing a breakdown in democracy, we now rank, I don't know, nowhere near in the top 10 of democracies of the world. We have lost a lot of our position with democracy. I call it being Swiss cheesed away, whether it's a book that's being banned or abortion laws that are being eroded. It's just completely being Swiss cheesed. And so this little bit goes, that little bit goes. And then we have an issue with immigration. We have an issue with employment. We have issues. We just have so many issues. And so the United States being the empire of the world, it basically shows here where you're watching this play out in America, and Americans really kind of don't know what happened to them. What happened to our World War II heroes and all of that. One of the things I've written about in my blog is that where are the great leaders in America? I look for greatness, I look for wisdom, and I don't find it. I don't find, I see successful politicians, and I see successful business people, and I see wealthy people, but I don't see great leaders here. And I don't know when we've had a really great leader. And a great leader requires wisdom, and it's a rare commodity to have a very, very wise leader. So we hunger for that. And we have a political situation that has really totally gotten out of hand and isn't really representing the citizens. It's representing the corporations, and it's representing the special interests. There's now, I guess, 4 lobbyists for every legislator. So we have a lot to clean up. We have a lot to get rid of, and it's going to be up to the citizens to do it. So this period we're in is very tenuous. People, they don't know. It's like waking up one day and what happened? What happened to the country? What happened to the inequality? You see all these things being worked out as this old order dies. So we're entering this air age. We're entering the era of rational thinking, and you cannot really build new laws on the old structure. So we have more to come this year and next year, particularly with this Pluto return in Capricorn, is a very, very tough period for the United States. It's affecting every area, as you can see, the economy, it's affecting the healthcare, every area. There's no stone unturned because of this transit. You have to go through it. This transit started in 2008 and it ends in 2024, but the effects of it go on for several years. So you can expect that all through the 20s is quite tumultuous. Tumultuous this year, tumultuous next year, very. And you want to really not go into too much shock and anxiety about it, because it's a natural order of things. And you also have right behind it, you have the female, which enters the picture in the number 2. So she's in her power for about 1,000 years, and she has been hidden, cloaked and hidden for thousands of years. So as she's back, and she is going to be rising really in power in 2024. So I really am very glad about that. If you haven't noticed, the number of females that have been prepared for the last 20 years in small ways, remember, that's being Swiss cheese too. You're watching the women replacing the men. And the women are going to be replacing the men in politics and in banking. And you're going to see this, you're just seeing it play out. You're watching it, but it really builds up speed in 24 and has a raging fire going for it for 20 years till 44. So women will really be replacing a lot of the male power, and you'll see the effects of how we do a lot of our policies going forward with women in control, women running the show, shall we say, versus a patriarchal society. So we have 1,000 years of the female society, and that doesn't mean that she runs out amok. It means that it's more of a cooperative, because females are much more interested in working with rather than overpowering. I mean, there's always the exception. There are lots of exceptions, but for the most part, they're a pretty cooperative bunch. And you never hear the expression, behind every successful woman, there's a man. But you do hear behind every successful male, there is a female, whether it's a grandmother, an aunt, or somebody who cared, it has to be a female, because she's the conscience of a society. And so we have been lacking in that conscience of society because we've hidden her and we have excluded her. So this isn't a feminist talk. It's just the reality of the numbers that we have 1,000 years of her. And she was just starting preparation in 2004. And so now she's really revving up. We have this new female on the Supreme Court, which is, part and parcel. But you watch and see, okay, as the old system dies. So a lot of these, quote, laws they want to put into effect, they're really being built on the old structure, and they're not going to last anyway. It's almost like whoever gets in power, it does matter, but it's not going to matter as much, because after we get through 2024 and Pluto is out of Capricorn and into the air sign of Aquarius, then we start to see a turning back to the people, a turning to humanity, a turning to the people. The Aquarius is a very dangerous age. And most people don't even talk about that, because it's an age of very accelerated innovation, accelerated science, accelerated technology, more so than, say, what our awareness or our wisdom is ready for. And it can be very destructive if we're not careful. So we have to really understand both sides of the coin of the sign of Aquarius. I'm an Aquarian, so not that means anything. But anyway, I am, and I'm very interested in, the pursuit of knowledge and all that. But too much knowledge is dangerous, because if you don't know how, if you don't have wisdom to go with your knowledge, what good are you? You just have a lot of knowledge, So, but you must have the wisdom, and this is what is lacking in the leadership. And so the countries of the world are going to be, there's going to be a lot of change. You're going to see a lot of changing in the female energy, replacement of the male. But what you're seeing with this Putin in the war is part and parcel of the old order. Let's see if we can take it, overpower the land, And so it's a test of really the world. It isn't just a test of this one country. And what will the world do about it? Will it allow it to continue on the way it is? I don't think so. And I think that if this war is not ended, but comes to some type of a negotiated settlement by the fourth week in April, most likely it will continue on. And, it could continue on for quite a while. So it just depends on the powers that be, what they want to do and how much we will get involved in it. And so that's just one thing. Regarding Pluto in Capricorn, it's still a corporate favor right now. The corporations have been running the show with the government for a long, long time. We have no idea of the incestuous relationship of these two. It's very incestuous. So this is going to be also changed, and that won't start till 2025, 26. And the effect of this Pluto in Capricorn is, well, will this empire last? I mean, it sounds ridiculous. You think you never would have thought of that. But if you go the standard route of empires, they do collapse. And they collapse from being Swiss cheese. They collapse from the people being complacent. There's 6 stages for an empire. The last 2 stages are decadence and actors. What are actors? Actors are politicians. And what happens in the end is the actors give the country away. Whether they give it away to corporations or they give it away to, they give their intellectual property away. They give the empire away. They're involved in they're too dispersed. The people have become too complacent. And you're seeing right now a lot of fringe groups taking over. One of the things that when I just recently did the urgent condition of the world, I did a Zoom program on it, and it is urgent. It's very urgent. It's going about to get more urgent. That we have a situation where the food shortages with this country. That's an urgent problem. Maybe not so much in the United States, but certainly in parts of the world where they're now substituting rice for wheat. And what is that going to do to those who need rice? And it is a very complicated condition because we're connected, whether we like it or not, to the world. So in the United States, whether we're going to, right now, up to this date, we have 330 books that have been asked to be banned from schools in America. And it's only March. That's remarkable. Now, whether or not they're banned, but the parents have asked for them to be banned. And the list now is 330. This is called the Swiss cheese effect, okay? And little by little, the power of legislatures or politicians begin to, eat away at the democratic makeup of the country. So you have to be careful. There is now militias are infiltrating, or what we'll call teaching, regular police officers, and they're getting, like credits for taking some of these classes. The state has to approve it, but some states are approving it. So we're having these, it's mainly in the West, Southwest, and parts of the South. So you have to be aware of what's going on that is Swiss cheesing America's democracy. And if this empire goes down, and I'm not saying it is, but these are critical years, this year particularly, and next year particularly critical. I think it will take 2 elections before you're out of this. That means 24 and 28 before we're out of this. People say, well, we're going to have a female. Not necessarily. Maybe we could, but it's not necessary that you have a female president. It's that you have to take care of the house. You have to clean the house, period. And you need to take a look at what we started out as. This is very important to go back to the original purpose of this place. And do you remember when we were formed that 40% of America was loyal to the king? So we started out with 40% of our population not really thrilled to be part of the United States. And after we started and we had the war, the colonies really didn't want to join as a country. They didn't really think it was a union. They just wanted to get away from King George and get the money off their back. So we were kind of always a renegade. We have always been at war of some kind, always. If you go back to the 1812, you will see we have been at war since 1812 in some type of world altercation somewhere. So this period now, I refer to a couple of my notes. We never want to forget that right now we are the power, and not China and not Russia. Okay, we're the only one there is out there right now. So what we do is very critically important to the world. Do we really care? Or are we just interested in the warrior game? Or, Dodgers? I love the Dodgers, but, that's not my world, right? And it shouldn't be yours. And the people need to stop being so complacent and letting such representative represent you. That was the way we set up. We said, we'll elect somebody who we think is good, and they can have our point of view and take care of us. Well, it's not working. Okay, it's not working. So is that the right type of government we want to maintain? That's the crossroads we're at. Do we want this representative type of government? Should a central government be making the budget? Even should we be involved in the budget of this country, or this, even our county or our city? Should we be personally effectively involved in it, in doing the budget? See, we're forming a way of running the government that is different than what we've had. We've had a top-down situation, central point, and then feeding the states and down. So and what's happened since we had the pandemic, we have a lot of powers gone to the states, lots of it. The other thing too is the world needed a wake-up call. It just wasn't getting aware on its own. So we had the COVID, okay? Perfect. It was the perfect tool to wake us up. It killed millions of people, and it said, and it's still not gone. It's still, parts of the world are still very, very vulnerable to it. And we've not seen that they get vaccinated fast enough so that we won't get more variants. And then we have the war. So we had a pandemic and a war. Wow, are we awake now? How's that? Because we weren't awake before. We weren't paying attention to this. We were too busy buying our lawnmowers. Okay, we were too busy, getting our book club done. We were too busy with all these things that were having nothing to do with how we ran our society. Yes, we're volunteers, one of the biggest volunteer countries in the world. But what are we volunteering for? Are we volunteering for a militia group? Are we volunteering? What are we doing to help this country? And so it's really important with this new society that is on its way here, that we become involved with it and become more active versus complacent. Complacency was one of the conditions of bringing down an empire, is complacency and diversion. And that's where the decadence came in. People were very involved with decadent things, all of and I love music, but enough already, okay? And cooking and things that were good, but what were their diversions? What are we doing to help the country? What are we doing to make the society better? And I'm not saying that some of us aren't. Some of us really are. They're trying very hard, but the majority of the people are asleep, or they're going to a NASCAR race. You know what I'm saying? And so, now I have, what did I do? Did I just touch something? Am I still on?
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm fine? I got my screen went out. Let me see. What did I do here? Okay. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get me back.
Well, we can see you and hear you.
You can see me and hear me. That's okay. Great. Thank you.
Fine, you're great.
Okay, because I can't, I'm looking at an advertisement for something and I don't know how this got here.
Well, Mother Internet plays all sorts of tricks.
I like, read the report. I'm still on Zoom, but they
Yeah,
sent me something weird. But you can see me?
I can see you, we can see you, and we can hear you.
Okay, great. I got some, and they're giving me some intro to Zoom, which is
Yeah,
really
well,
odd.
it
Okay,
may be
never
that
mind.
your
We'll
screen
just,
is actually behind another screen and some other thing is on top.
lovely. Okay.
Yeah. Sort of the pancake theory of the internet there.
Okay, well, it's sort of distracting. But anyway, so long as you can see me, I'm happy with that and you can hear
We
me.
will let you know. I'll let you know if there's any problem, but right now you're speaking and we can hear you and it's all
And you can hear me fine? Okay, thank you.
inspiring. Yes.
Okay,
Gail,
great.
your view may be a little Swiss cheesed, but we can see you just fine.
Okay, thank you. They took the whole thing and they didn't just Swiss cheese it. They took the whole screen and it's all Zoom. And I'm like, what? So nevertheless, okay. So we have these problems. We have the supply chain problem that's not going away for quite a while. We have to work that out. We have the inflation. That's a serious problem. That's not going away. We have COVID. That's not going away. It's gone away where we have, vaccinations, but we still have work to do with COVID because there's so much of the world not vaccinated. We have rising interest rates, which was needed and was long overdue. It brought on this housing situation. Basically, America has outpriced its citizens. Its citizens can't live here. There's no housing for them. Not enough. And America, that was not its emphasis. And so it wasn't about worrying about the citizens. It was worrying about the legislature staying in power. Okay. We have people in power 50 years. They made it their life mission to stay there. And so things like term limits on both the Supreme Court and the legislature should be considered. So we have shortages because of the supply chain. We have these internal losses with our democracy. So we need to also continue to keep the separation of church and state, and that's being Swiss cheesed as well. We basically have a fringe group on the right that is doing its best to combine church and state in all these little ways, and this is very, very dangerous. So we have the loss of the separation of church, or we're losing it. We have the extreme conservative situation with our judicial system. And we have before we have this woman elected, and when Breyer was there, we had 7 of the 9 judges Catholic, raised Catholic. So and you can't help but say that how you were raised influences how you think. So anyway, and we have this oversight saying that election was fraud. So that these states now have suppressed voting rights due to a lie. So this is what's happening and how you lose your nation. So it's a very tribal mentality. I was at a salon and I couldn't believe this conversation. This woman was saying, well, I'm moving to Florida. I live in California. I'm moving to Florida because I want to go where my people are. And so people are moving to states that have this similar makeup. And so if you're interested in militias, you might want to go to Idaho. It's becoming more tribal versus democratic. Okay, and what's good for the all. So we have to learn how to assimilate ourselves, and we're not doing a very good job with that, because right now the religious right minority is controlling morality. You have this heavy presence with the abortion situation. Women are being imprisoned because they miscarried. This just was the news in California, up in a rural area. They got a woman out of prison who had been put in there. I think it was her baby was stillborn, but they found drugs in the baby's system. So she was in prison for several years. I mean, this is, we also don't know the hidden power of corporations behind this legislators. We see all this and we shake our heads and we do nothing. But this is what you need to be aware of. And so we have the next couple of years are really about what do you want and how do you want this society to be. We have to go from this period of the Piscean age, the Aquarian age, get used to thinking. People don't want to think, they want to react. Think, become wiser versus smarter, and also learn to assimilate. And we're not, right now, we're doing just the opposite. We're making our little tribes in certain areas, and then we're competing against one another in the states. So if you want to lose the empire, go ahead. So we have these situations where my feeling is that after 2025, things should improve. And so we have 22, 23, and 24. And so there's a possibility of war in 23. And so we want to stay smart, involved, okay? We need to do something about our immigration. We need employees, but we don't bring in immigrants that could help us a great deal, particularly taking care of the elderly. They have a culture, like the Filipinos have a culture where the old is more honored. And so there's many that are groomed there for nursing, and we need to bring in more. We need to be wise in looking at the life here of people and improving it and helping it. And versus this, well, pull yourself up from the bootstraps. This was always fake. Basically, the people who came west in the United States were poor English or poor English speaking, and they basically were not wealthy people. So you have a bunch of people who are, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, very competitive. And America thrives on competition. So you have to be very careful. If you go to the next higher level of wisdom, it isn't about competition. And you learn the laws of manifestation, and you learn how to work with an invisible world that runs everything. The other thing that people don't realize too, is that we live in an invisible world. This is a very small place, planet Earth, and this Earth plane, where we learn two things: how to work with emotional energy and free will choice. We have to learn how to work with emotional energy and free will choice. Everybody has to do that. People say, what is my purpose? What did I come for? You learn you're here to work with emotional energy, so everything has an emotional charge. And you have to learn how to make choice. No one's going to do that for you. So people keep looking, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Think I should do this? No, I don't know. And so you're always at choice here. That's your job. And you're not here that long. A blueprint's about 120 years, and retirement is artificial, man-made, and debilitating. We have no plans from 60 to 90. We need to have 60 to 90s as we did from 30 to 60. So we have these ages. Childhood is to 30. We start building that foundation and doing a lot from 30 to 60. We start working from that foundation from 60 to 90. And then from 90 to 120, we do some to retiring. And people have no plans from 60 to 90. Travel, whoopee, away, and eat those buffets. And, golf. What are we doing here? Because the body wants to know, why should it stay if it's not going to do anything but eat buffets and play golf? So the body became—
Gail, just one moment here, Gail.
Yes.
Just to know, we have about 12 more minutes in the session.
Okay, so we should stop
And that
here.
would include if you want to do more presentation or open the floor for questions or
Well,
comments.
let's open the floor for questions, because people always have questions.
Okay. That's Jenny, right? Dr. Jenny?
Yes. So I'd like to thank you so much for the wise presentation. I'd like to know if Reagan was President Day, would seems be different. He was an Aquarian, and Biden is a Scorpio.
I did not understand that. I'm
And
sorry.
so if President Reagan was President Day, do you think that he could have handled the situation differently?
Like, can somebody help me with that? I'm not understanding what you said.
Okay, well, let
Something
me
about
ask you.
President Reagan. Is somebody else could tell me what she said? Does somebody else understand that?
Ginny, why don't you write it on the chat?
I don't see the screen.
Oh,
I have another.
Well,
I have
somebody
another
can read it to
Reagan,
you.
if President
I have another
Reagan
question.
was,
president.
When President Reagan was president, right?
would
If he
do
were
things
president
differently
now,
today?
how would he handle Ukraine?
Oh, I don't know. I think he would be appalled at what's going on right now.
I
Because
have another question, please. Titanium, you know, China is the first producer, and the second producer, and Russia is the third producer. And if they do not have titanium, they won't be able to build planes. Any comments about that? And Biden has been involved.
I'm having a hard time understanding.
we're
I
having
don't
some-
I don't know really what you're saying. I get only a couple of words. I don't know if it's your microphone or it's my ears.
Jenny, can you type in the chat your
sure,
questions
sure.
and then we can read them to
Okay,
Gail
yes,
so that she
yes.
can understand?
Yeah, write the question in.
Yes, yes, yes.
Interpreter. Are there any other questions? Or
In
do
the
you want
meantime,
to-
Nita had a question. In the
No,
meantime.
this isn't a question. I just want to say, for years I've been reading, the Dalai Lama says that Western woman will save the world. And I think it's good to hear you confirm that. Western woman will save the world. So girls, we got to get going here.
Right. I mean, this is women need to step up and stop saying, I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry, could you please? Or I'm sorry, could you? And stop saying that and learn to be the queen bee with the sword under her cape. Learn to be steel in a velvet glove.
Yeah.
Don't explain so much. It's like, take your power, because women are terrific and men are afraid of them. They have the conscience. This is what they're afraid of. They know that women know more. They know that women know at a deeper level. So they've always been afraid of women. They've covered her up and kept her away, and they didn't know why she bled years ago. What was that about? Frightened them. And so they have kept her away, afraid that they can't control her. So, and they can't.
Thank you.
Michael, that's appeared now on the chat, and then after that get answered, then Eugenia had a question.
Okay, would someone like to read the question on the chat, please?
I will. China is the first in titanium production. Japan is second place and Russia is in third place. Without titanium, there would not be a production of planes. Any comments about that with the president?
Well, all the precious metals, they're finding other places for precious metals. Not everybody is empty of precious metals. I mean, precious metals were also backpiled as well. And yes, these have X number of percentage of precious metals or titanium, whatever. But we are finding other places for it. It's not the only game in town. These have had more of the market, but that doesn't mean they have the market. So, we're very industrious.
Yeah.
Nothing would surprise me if they're just finding out this morning that all the MiGs that America owns here in Alabama, and we're considering giving these to Ukraine. We have a lot of things up our sleeves that you don't know.
Okay.
That makes an empire. That's what's good about it.
Right. Gail, do you have any thoughts on the emergence of high technology networks like social media that are global now and that are creating vast disruptions of communications and
It's dangerous and it's good. It's both good and bad. Remember I said the Aquarian age is a very, very dangerous age. It's the most dangerous age of all the signs. And because of its technology and because the awareness of the human has not caught up with it at all. And so social media cuts both ways. It will be looked at, it will try to be controlled, but as soon as you control it, something else will uncontrol it. So that the jury is still out as how we're going to handle it, but we need it. But it's spreading, misinformation, and it's also preventing people from getting information. So it's
Okay.
a double-edged sword, and
Yeah.
how it plays out remains to be seen.
see that. Who's another question? Anyone?
I do. I'm Carolyn.
Well,
Did you-
Eugenia was first and then Carolyn came in.
Okay, Eugenia, then Carolyn, okay?
Thank you. A couple things. So you mentioned the 6 stages of an empire collapsing, correct?
Yeah,
And could you, do you know, can you list those 6 stages? And then I'm also thinking about the stages of loss and how loss and grief and how, we're not in a stage all the time. We bounce back and forth and it's a slow movement. Can you mention the other stages of collapse, please?
the first stage is usually, it's called the pioneering stage. It's when a country is fresh and new, everything is great, and they go out and they begin to, explore the world, and they have a lot of energy, tremendous energy. And then I'm not know if I read these all in the correct order. Another stage is the stage where we learn commerce, where commerce does very well, and people become adapted to it, and it spreads. That's commerce. And then another one is we develop a military side where we're able to conduct wars or be threats to other groups, where we become stronger. Another stage is the intellectual stage, where we have the teachers and we have those who become more of the brains, the intellectuals. So these stages, so we have that stage, we have the stage of the pioneer, we have the stage of the military, we have the stage of the commerce, we have the stage of the intellect. And after the intellect comes the decadence.
Right.
And the decadence is where the people themselves indulge. Okay, and the people themselves and the leaders indulge. And then the last one is the actors, where those in power disintegrate the country and give it away. When I say give it away, I don't mean literally give the piece of land away, although that could be, but I mean give it away in parts. You're seeing, this is very disturbing, is you're seeing these erosions of democracy inside the United States.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, here I am.
Carolyn was next.
Carolyn,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Gail, for your presentation, your wisdom, and your earnestness.
Oh, thank you.
We-
They're earnest.
Right.
At 8 a.m, earnest.
We women who are listening to you either at this moment or through your blog or books will come up with wonderful ideas individually. And I love the idea of being in our own integrity and not saying I'm sorry, but blah, blah, blah. So here you are saying,
What?
We lost her.
Oh, dear.
Well, we might have a freeze for a moment, but she should come back shortly.
Okay.
You hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
I
What
can.
are your 3 most important suggestions that you have for women? Okay, you may speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay, give money. Okay, give money to candidates that are really smart, good, wise. Okay, get involved. Don't just come on and do phones or stuff like that. Get engaged. Don't worry about, act as if it is. You want that job. Remember, men are not as qualified as women deep down. Okay. When you want something, you see it, you do it, and stop listening to other people. Stop looking for agreement. Stop looking to apologize for yourself. Stand there and start willing to be disliked.
Exactly.
Okay, any other question?
Yeah, Dana and Jonathan and Tim. I don't know who was first.
Yeah, I saw Tim first, but then, okay, Tim, then Jonathan, then Dana, and then we got it a real quick.
Okay, just a couple of feelings from my side and thoughts, and I think the whole concept of empire is why we're in the mess we're in. The Russian Empire, the US Empire, and so forth. And I think you really brought forth all the stages beautifully, and we cannot give everything away, but we have to shift our thinking. And part of the shifting of the thinking also involves men bringing forth their feminine side.
Right.
So and then also the women bringing forth their masculine side. You mentioned a dagger or a sword under the cloak. That's the male part. So we have to all work this thing together and not just say it's only women, it's men who also are bringing forth the compassion and the caring and loving and all of that and the mentality to make this thing work. We can't go back. We can't go, everybody's hanging on to the past. We cannot pull the past up. It's just ain't gonna work anymore. So
No,
those are a few my thoughts.
No, that it's true. And the male has had the platform for thousands of years. The female will have the platform, but her platform is much more interdependent, more cooperative than a male, and which allows then the male to be more feminine and the feminine to be more male, because we have both parts. But what has been pushed down is the feminine part. So to me, and I'll say this, and a lot of women think, what? I say that men are more emotional internally than women, and women are much stronger internally than men for the most part. This is average, general speaking. And that young boys are really got it really bad in what they're expected to be little men very early, and boys don't cry. This is a terrible thing. And that this be allowed, that men can be feminine as young boys and not to be brought up just so that they're the little man of the whatever. Or and most of us on this Zoom call don't do that, but a large majority of the population does.
Okay. I'd like to call in Dana and then Jonathan.
The thing that occurs to me going on what Tim said is that rather than speaking about this as gender, why don't we think about it as archetypes? Because we're all infused with archetypes, and gender biases stem from whatever one's archetypal makeup is inside. And as we heard this morning in the Tao Te Ching, collaboration is what we seek. Collaboration builds paths. It opens us up to other ways of being. It connects us. It honors one another.
Well, you're going to hear a lot of gender rhetoric. That's what we're dealing with right now. Instead of it's not taking an intellectual plane of an archetypal thing. It's really, let's go down where the street is. The street is there. The street is the gender. And right now the gender is turning towards feminine. Not that it's overruling, it's turning towards it, including it.
Okay.
Well, and it isn't about,
we don't have a lot of time. Excuse me. We don't have a lot of time to get into a big dispute at this point. I do want to have Jonathan have his question, then we have to move on, Gail.
Okay.
Jonathan, do you have a question?
No, I really don't have a question.
Okay.
We're all under conditioning.
Yeah, we have a lot, and Gail has raised some amazing issues. This has been a wonderful presentation, and I want to thank you for the depth of the issues you brought before us, Gail. This is really amazing. So what I'd like to request, Gail, this is what we usually do. If you would email Mary Grace, our leader, any and all of your blogs, books, articles, links to those to her directly. She will distribute everything to all members of this group.
Okay.
So that they will have access to some of the wisdom you've shared with us today.
Yeah, read some of these blogs. I now put them in audio as well as written. So if you want to listen in a car.
What we like to have is for our speakers, just send any and all things you want, what you would like to share with us, things you have for sale or things you offer as a blog, whatever it is, just send it to Mary Grace and she'll distribute it to us all so the people who have heard your presentation can take part in what you are offering us, because it was just extraordinary thoughts, insights, and wisdom for everyone to partake of.
Just a quick thing, I'll be live in Orange County, just was set yesterday, May 22nd.
All right.
For 2 hours in Orange County, California.
All right, excellent. Well, again, email that notice to Mary Grace as well.
Okay.
And just indicate if there's a sense of urgency for her to email the group about it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Please recognize and thank our speaker today,